And all, welcome back to the Superhero Chronicles, and we have finally made it to the last film of Phase 2 of the MCU, with, I guess you could say, a bonus side story. That side story being, of course, Ant-Man, starring Paul Rudd, Angevine Lilly, Bobby Cavanaugh, Michael Pena, and Michael Douglas as Hank Pym, who is the original Ant-Man. Paul Rudd plays the new Ant-Man, Scott Lang. The film was also directed by Peyton Reed, who also did Yes Man. So let's break it down for a little bit. Number one, I like Ant Man. I think Ant Man to me was a nice small stakes movie. You know, it wasn't over, it wasn't grandiose or anything like that. It was nice. It was scaled back. It was small. You know, kind of like the old Spider-Man, Sam Raimi, like the old Spider-Man movie that Sam Raimi did, where it's like it wasn't high stakes. It was just like a personal story. And to the movie's credit, that's what it needed to be. It didn't need to be anything grander than that, because the whole plot of this movie is that Hank Pym created this thing called the Pym particle, which is able to shrink you in size but increase you in strength. And his protege, Darren Cross, played by Corey Stoll, doing his best Lex Luthor impersonation, uh, has found a way to develop the technology of the Pym particle. So pretty much, Hank Pym recruits, Scott Lang to become the Ant Man and to take down and to take down Darren Cross, who becomes the Yellow Jacket and has like the standard good guy versus bad guy supervillain fight. But their fight is actually entertaining and it's fun to watch. So yeah, so that's the overall basic premise. It's very small scale. It's very like character driven, I guess. But let's go over the good stuff, and then we'll get to the next. We'll get to the negatives later. So the good things. Everyone in the cast pulls a great job. Does a phenomenal job. Paul Rudd as Scott Lang is hilarious. I'm a big Paul Rudd fan. I love Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd's one of my favorite comedians, and when I found out he was playing Ant-Man, I was like, at least he's going to give him some personality, because I'd never read anything from Ant-Man. I'm familiar with Ant-Man, but I'd never seen anything related to Ant-Man. So I went into this thing with an empty slate. I just went in there knowing that Paul Rudd's going to be hilarious, and guess what? I can't believe how right I was, because Paul Rudd was great, and and his fight and his action sequence and the scenes where he did some action and training was actually was very entertaining, especially his the training montages he has with Hope Van Deen, who is the daughter of Hank Pym. So I love the training montages that involves those three. It's funny as hell. And of course you got speaking of Hope Van Deen, you have Angevine Lilly who plays Hope, and I like the performance of her. She comes across as a bitch, but then she like mellows out near the end of the movie, which I thought was pretty cool. Uh, and like I said, Corey Stoll plays Darren Cross, the villain, and like I said, he does his best Lex Luthor. He's not the greatest villain in a Marvel movie, which is a big strike, because if the villain's generic, then that's just ugh. I mean, the performance is fine, but like I said, his motivations are somewhat clear, and his motivations are at the same time not as clear. So it's like he's very sloppily written to me, which is again that's also another problem. Of course, Michael Pena plays Paul Rudd's friend, and I like he plays Louise, Scott's friend, and I like Michael Pena in this movie. He is hysterical. Michael Pena has a lot of lines in this movie that I quote every now and then. I just think he's hilarious, and in this movie it was no different. So Michael Pena did a great job too, and Michael Douglas as Hank Pym, and Michael Douglas can still, in my eyes, command the screen. He's still so entertaining to watch, and to me, this was Michael Douglas's best performance in a movie in a long time. Ant-Man pretty much assured that Michael Douglas is a world class actor, and he can still act with the best of them. And I love the chemistry between Rudd and Douglas. They have such good chemistry together, and I also like the chemistry with Angevine Lilly and Michael Douglas as father and daughter. They also have pretty good chemistry, and I love the whole thing of her being estranged from Michael Douglas' character because of what happened to her mother. Of course, we learned that her mother sacrificed herself on a mission, and she went subatomic and basically dies basically. But I like the fact that they're strained because of that, because he never really told her the truth of what happened, and of course he also pushed her away because of his grief. But I liked the fact that it was them coming together to train Scott Lang that brought them closer again and made them go full circle, which I thought was great. Uh, like I said, the relationship between Hope and Hank, very very well done in my opinion. You can't. I don't think you get any better than how it was done. I was done the way it is. And I also, like I said, I also like the whole mentor thing between Hank and Scott. That was also really well handled. And also the pseudo romantic tension between Hank and Hope, between Scott and Hope was, I don't know. It was good. It was I don't know. Actually, it was almost non-existent because I did not really. I mean, there's like certain, I don't know, just weird. Like, because out of nowhere, they at the end of the movie, they just start kissing each other, and they really didn't really establish like a love thing between the two, or maybe they did, but it was very subtle with it. So you got to really pay attention to that. So that could have been handled a little better. But again, the action scenes, the action set pieces in this movie were pretty cool, especially like when Scott first becomes the Ant Man. First off, the digital effects in this movie are really really well done. Peyton Reed does a fantastic job with the special effects. He really pulls them off, and you really believe that they shrunk Paul Rudd to the size of an ant. It looks great, and like I said, the CGI for the most part looks really well done. Of course, there are certain parts where it kind of looks a little shaky, most likely near the end, where an ant becomes a huge giant ant, and you could clearly tell that it looks fake. And then there's also that could be done a little better, but whatever. It ain't gonna make or break the movie anyway, because for the most part the CG was done pretty well. It was done really well, and of course, and like I said, the scene when you first see Scott turn and become the Ant Man, he encounters a lot of he encounters like random things, like being stuck in a bathtub, being chased by a mouse. That was also really funny. It was also really hilarious to watch, and I really enjoyed that. And of course, and Anthony Mackie as Falcon makes a cameo appearance in this movie, and because in one of the plot in one of the scenes, Ant Man pretty much has to infiltrate the Avengers Tower to steal something, and he gets into a fight with Falcon, and that fight is actually very entertaining, and the brief banter between the two is really funny to me. It's hilarious to me, and I would like to see Paul Rudd and Mackie have like more screen time as Ant-Man and Falcon, because I think they can have some really good comedic banter with one another. Because what I saw in this movie, I would like to see more of it. What's another? Oh yeah, and of course, like the main action set piece, which takes place at the end between the Yellow Jacket and Ant-Man. Like I said, it's your generic good guy versus bad guy, and it's a cool, fun fight to watch. The only thing is that there's not really a whole lot of substance behind it, because they never really established a rivalry between Scott and Darren. They mostly established a rivalry between Darren and Hank, and Darren being Hank's former mentor. And see, that stuff over there was like, I was kind of getting interested in, but they didn't really fully develop it to me. So I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that. But it is what it is. Can't fight City Hall, I guess. But in the end, Ant-Man stops the Yellow Jacket by going subatomic as a way to get into his suit and try and kill him, which he does. And of course, and that's pretty much the end of the movie. Everything else is just him reuniting with his daughter. Real quick, he's divorced, and he's an ex-con. Scott Lang's an ex-con, and because he's an ex-con, he can't really see his daughter Cassie because he can't really, because he has to prove that he's worthy to see. He has to give up his thieving ways and actually go straight, which he does try to do, to his credit. It just doesn't work out his way because he has a record. It's hard to get work. But he does try to go straight. And at the end of the movie, he's rewarded because he becomes, the Ant-Man, a hero. And he's able to, reunite with his daughter. who lives with, of course, Bobby Cavanaugh, who plays the cop and stepdad, and of course is with his ex-wife, and of course because of that he's allowed to see his daughter. And he's allowed to actually have a life with her, which is great. But so yeah, that's the overall ending of the film. Now, let's get to the juicy stuff. Now we have two, as usual, post. We have a mid-credit and a post-credit. The mid-credit pretty much sets up the Ant-Man sequel, in which Hope will become the Wasp, which is great. And of course, the post-credit sets up Captain America's Civil War, as we see Evans, as we see that Rogers and Wilson have Bucky in their custody, and they also mention that Stark is too busy dealing with the Accords, because when we get to Civil War, we'll dive into that. So anyway, that is my my thoughts on Ant-Man. Like I said, very solid movie. I like it. In the end, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. It's just it's above average. It's not horrible, but it's not bad. But I like it more than Iron Man 3, and I sure as hell like it more than Thor: The Dark World. Not only that, I remember Ant-Man more than I remember those two. I'm sorry. I remember Ant-Man more than I remember Thor: The Dark World. And also, Ant-Man didn't piss me off like Iron Man did. So I think a 7 out of 10 is a perfect rating for this film. Well, those are my overall thoughts on Ant-Man. I hope it was informative enough. I'll see you next time as we finally get to Phase 3 and we encounter a civil war between the Avengers. But until then, take care, guys.